Welcome back, everyone. So today we're diving into this explainer, and we are going to do something really, really cool. We're taking a classic, universally known tale, the story of a young boy and a tiger, and we're completely dissecting it. We're not just, reading a bedtime story here, we are treating this text like a behavioral case study to get to the absolute bottom of how trust actually works. Like, how is it built? And more importantly, how is it totally dismantled? It's literally the anatomy of a lie. Let's get into it.
Right off the bat, look at these words. This desperate, panicked cry is the entire catalyst for everything we're looking at today. In any normal community, an alarm call like, "Tiger, tiger, help, help," that triggers an immediate, visceral, hardwired response in us, right? It's this evolutionary distress signal. It's meant to marshal all the community's resources to literally save a life. But what actually happens when that ultimate signal of distress gets weaponized? And that brings us to our main question. What happens when a joke goes way, way too far? We're going to explore exactly what happens to a group of people when those urgent words aren't used for survival, but just for pure deception. When a cry for help becomes a punchline, the damage goes so much further than just making people annoyed. It completely shatters the social contract. So let's trace exactly how this breakdown happens. Okay, moving into section 1, the shepherd and the forest. Let's establish the environment we're dealing with. The source text paints the picture perfectly here, and visualizing this geography is absolutely crucial. So picture this. We have a shepherd boy tending his sheep in a field, but notice the proximity. This field is sitting right on the edge of a thick forest, but it's also not far from his village. He's basically occupying this threshold space. On one side you have civilization, safety, the villagers, and on the other, the dark, totally unpredictable danger of the forest. It's this exact physical tension, the fact that danger is actually very plausible, that makes the lie he's about to tell so incredibly effective. So, let's talk about motive. Why does he actually do this? Well, the text explicitly calls him a cunning boy. This wasn't some innocent misunderstanding, guys. It wasn't a trick of the light where he saw shadow and thought it was a predator. No. The text straight up tells us he started this whole mess simply because he wanted to make fun with the villagers. He knew he was in that powerful threshold position we just talked about, and he consciously chose to exploit everyone's goodwill just for his own entertainment. It's a calculated manipulation of empathy, plain and simple. Section 2. The false alarms. Let's look at how this turns into a habitual pattern. Let's map out the timeline of what this boy actually did, and watch things escalate. The pacing here is super interesting. We kick off with day 1, the first joke. He shouts, the villagers come running, he laughs in their faces, and they leave feeling fooled. But he doesn't stop. The text specifically notes that after a few days, he pulls the exact same stunt. That gap, those few days, is key. It's just enough time for everyone's anger to cool off, but definitely not enough time for them to forget. And of course, this timeline marches us right up to that fateful one day when everything violently changes. If we treat the source text as actual data, it's pretty wild. We can track this exact inverse relationship between the boy shouting and the villagers actually caring enough to respond. Look at the first joke. Reality is zero danger, but the villager reaction is 100% effort. They literally run to help. Second joke, still zero danger, and the villagers came again, but their trust is really fraying at this point. Now check out that bottom row. When the reality shifts and there's a real tiger, the villager reaction completely zeroes out. They thought he was kidding. All that social capital he had? He completely bankrupted it with bad data. Which brings us to section 3, the tiger strikes. This is the moment the illusion gets terrifyingly real. The text gets super stark and uncompromising here. Quote, one day a tiger really came and it attacked the flock of sheep. The fake scenario he kept pushing has actually manifested into reality. And now, stripped of all that control and his so-called cunning, the boy is just running on pure survival instinct. He manages to scramble up a tree and he starts screaming for help. But, and here's the kicker, he's using the exact same distress signal, the literal exact same words that he just used as a punchline. You really have to appreciate the tragic irony going on here. Look at the stark contrast. On the left, we're seeing the past. The very same people who completely dropped everything and burned their own energy to save him when there was absolutely zero danger. And on the right, the devastating present. They hear his very real, deeply desperate cries, and they just assume, oh, he's kidding again. The boy is basically broadcasting on a frequency that the villagers have actively muted. Because of his own choices, his actual truth is completely indistinguishable from his lies. Now, for our final part, section 4, the cost of deception. Let's look at the ultimate fallout. One, that is the exact, quantified cost of the boy's lies according to our source text. One sheep was killed and dragged away by the tiger because no help arrived. And, sure, that might seem kind of small compared to the whole flock, but this single lost life is a totally undeniable consequence. It is the physical manifestation of lost trust. That isolation the boy artificially created just for a laugh, it became absolutely total when he actually needed his community the most. And so the text wraps up with the boy's final vows. It lays out this step-by-step realization of just how badly he messed up. Step 1 is the emotional hit. He finally felt sorry for his quote-unquote silly joke. The reality of a dead sheep finally pierced through his cunning. Step 2 is a specific behavioral promise. He promised not to tell a lie. And Step 3 expands that to a broader societal promise. He promised not to fool people again. He finally gets it. He gets that his words have real weight, and that manipulating people is an incredibly destructive game.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you guys with one final thought. The boy learned his lesson, right? He felt terrible, he made his promises, but the sheep is still gone. The absolute terror of that tiger attack, that still happened. The villagers' innocent, genuine willingness to help was still violated. To me, this just reveals the immense, largely unseen fragility of trust in our own lives. I mean, it takes enormous effort to build, just a single cunning joke to destroy, and maybe a whole lifetime to rebuild. So when trust is entirely broken, can an apology ever truly recover what was taken away? Think about that the next time you consider the power of the signals you're sending out into the world. Thanks so much for joining me for this one, and as always, keep learning.